Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Go Premanandi Shishi Danitai Gaura Hari Ki Shishi Nitai Sundar Nataraj Ki Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Shri Jagannath Mishra's Mahamahotsava Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pastyacha Deshatarine. We are today reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5. I guess it's text 44.
Yes.
This appears to be the last verse of the chapter. And it's a very interesting subject. Is Narada Muni cursed by Prajapati Daksha? Even great souls sometimes get cursed. But a curse for a great soul is always a great benediction in one sense, at least for the devotee. So I'll read it through. We're a little bit short on time, I guess. I'll just read it through. You can repeat once. Shri Shuko Vacha Prati Jagraha Tadbadam Naradak Sadhu Sammataha Etavam Sadhu Vadohi Titikshete Svayam Sri Sukha Uvasha Sri Shukadeva Goswami said Patijagraha accepted Tat that Bharam so be it Narada Muni Sadhu Samataha who is an approved sadhu Etavan this much Sadhu Vadaha appropriate for a saintly person he indeed Titiksheta he may tolerate Ishvaraha although able to curse Prajapati Daksha Svayam himself. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, my dear king, since Narada Muni is an approved saintly person, when cursed by Prajapati Daksha, he replied, Tadbadam, yes, what you have said is good. I accept this curse. He could have cursed Prajapati Daksha in return, but because he is a tolerant and merciful sadhu, he took no action. Purport, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-21. This is a teaching of Lord Kapila Dev to his mother Devahuti. Titikshvara karunika suridak sarvadehinam ajata shatrabhakshanta sadhava sadhubhushanaha. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all of his characteristics are sublime. Because Narada Muni is the most elevated of sadhus or devotees, to deliver Prajapati Daksha, he silently tolerated the curse. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught this principle to all of his devotees. Trinadapi sanichena karodapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniyak sadaharihi. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects unto others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Following the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one who preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world, or all over the universe, should be humbler than grass and more tolerant than a tree, because a preacher cannot live an easy-going life. Indeed, a preacher must face many impediments. Not only is he sometimes cursed, but sometimes he must also suffer personal injury. For example, when Nityananda Prabhu went to preach Krishna consciousness to the two roguish brothers Jagai and Madai, they injured him and made his head bleed. But nevertheless, he tolerantly delivered the two rogues, who became perfect Vaishnavas. This is the duty of a preacher. Lord Jesus Christ even tolerated crucifixion. Therefore the curse against Narada was not very astonishing, and he tolerated it. Now it may be asked why Narada Muni stayed in the presence of Prajapati Daksha and tolerated all of his accusations and curses. Was that for Daksha's deliverance? The answer is yes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that after being insulted by Prajapati Daksha, Narada Muni should have left immediately, but he purposely stayed to hear all of Daksha's strong words, so that Daksha might be relieved of his anger. Prajapati Daksha was not an ordinary man. He had accumulated the results of many pious activities. Therefore Narada Muni expected that after delivering his curse, Daksha, satisfied and freed from anger, would repent his misbehavior and thus get a chance to become a Vaishnava and be delivered. Interesting, huh? We may not be on the level of Narada Muni. Not so easy to tolerate, is it? Yeah. And even if we do tolerate, usually the other person is not so cultured as Daksha or so elevated. They will not necessarily repent. Sometimes, yeah, when they see that your behavior is so saintly, they do. Sometimes. This was his mentality. Pretty much, you could say, Trikalagaya is seeing the future. Usually we act on the present, which is also recommended, but sometimes our present is not always the best reaction. And we respond in a similar angry way, or something like that. When Jagai and Madai offended Lord Nityananda stood tolerantly, and therefore both brothers fell at his lotus feet and repented. Of course, they had a bit of a shake-up from Lord Chaitanya, which kind of inspired them a little bit more than just because of Nityananda's tolerance. They were too drunk. But when their lives were almost ended by Lord Chaitanya, then they certainly did repent at Lord Nityananda's feet. Consequently, they also later became perfect Vaishnavas. There are many examples of this, of course, in devotional history. I don't know about it in the world around us, maybe. But at least the devotees should be aware of this. So what points do we get out of this purport on this verse? What points would you ascertain are relevant to us? Something significant.
A saintly person is tolerant.
A saintly person is tolerant, yeah. That's very clear. Very, very clear. Anything else?
First, to relieve Daksha from his anger, Narada Muni carried his coursing in order to purify him from his
Yeah. Well, there's always a benefit also in associating with saintly persons. But from the practical point of view, as you say, he tolerated what we just kind of briefly mentioned that, of course. With the idea that Daksha will, have you finished type of thing, let all of his anger out. And then because of the tolerant, saintly behavior of Narada, he might sort of regret what he just said. Because usually when people get angry, they kind of expect the other person to either run away or get angry. Most people get really, maybe we've got a personal issues, it may not be on the person itself specifically, but generally when we get very angry, we lose control. And sometimes people get angry. There's a certain class of people who get angry in order to incite your anger. They're very expert at that. They're very kind of provocative.
Maharaj, you see here that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that Narada should have left immediately.
Well, that's the normal process, isn't it?
Like there's the verse in 11th canto, it says the duty or the criteria of a Madhyama Adhikari. It says that the Ishvara Taridinishu Bali Seshu Prema Maitri Kripa Upeksha Yakaroti Samadhan. So it says that the Madhyama, for someone who's envious, he gives them neglect.
Neglect.
So Daksha seems to be showing some kind of envious behavior. So he should have gone away because
but he's not a Madhyamadikari, he's an Uttamadikari.
Do you have any insight into why Narada stayed for Daksha? Does Daksha have a special kind of qualification that Narada can see? That he's giving him some time, he's not actually fully envious, he's just angry, something like that.
Yeah, he's angry. Well, Daksha has a role to play. I mean, he's a powerful person. I mean, he's one of the universal progenitors. He's a very important person in the universe. I mean, practically everyone respected him. He's an important person. I mean, in material dealings also, material considerations are often taken into account, when you're with somebody who's got a big position in the material world. Because Narada Muni will also think of the general situation, not just him and Daksha, about the world around him and so on as well. And, the effect on others, A devotee never likes to humiliate anyone. He never likes to, bring anyone down, so to speak. But it's like with Krishna, with Indra, Indra never got angry Krishna never got angry with Indra. He delivered him. Of course, he had a different approach, you could say, because Krishna had a pastime approach, but he never got overtly angry with him. Indra was super angry. He's the king of the heavens, Krishna could have sliced his head off with just a thought, didn't have to do anything. But he has a role to play, so, that has to be, even in our own Krishna conscious movement, many times temple managers may do something which is not perhaps as what it should be quite, but, Prabhupada would never publicly or never kind of, criticize them in that way. He would do that privately. His whole purpose was to elevate people, not to, chop people. So the different situations. But it would seem to me that Narada Muni, primarily his concern is to purify Daksha. And he's got a big position in life, in the world, responsible position. He's a Shrestha. People follow his example. But this is partly his role, They play roles. I mean, Prajapati Daksha, he had a pretty heavy run-in with Lord Shiva as well.
When you get the head of a goat?
Yeah, that was really quite a heavy one, wasn't it? It all has its part to play. Later on I think he got his own head back. I vaguely remember reading that somewhere. But everything has its purpose, Everything has a lesson to learn. Now, don't disrespect seniors. You may, tolerate, you may not react, but somebody who's a senior, in a sense, although Narada Muni is obviously senior, but from the material, but universal, it's just like when, Balaram entered into the arena of the sages of Naimishranya, and Maharshana was sitting on the Vyasasan. They'd asked him to be their head, basically, of their assembly. So in one sense, there was no reason why he should get up, No reason. But Balaram could detect pride in his heart. Could detect that. And of course, Balaram is not an ordinary person anyway, but even if he was justified in one sense, in another sense he was not at all justified, but even if he were, Balaram could see that he had pride in his heart. So out of compassion, Balaram wanted to, remove that pride. That's the idea of a preacher Madhyama Adhikari may not be on that level. You mentioned a verse describing a Madhyam. And Narada Muni is not a Madhyam, he's an Uttama Bhagavat. Even if he plays the role of a Madhyam. So he may sometimes also demonstrate, like Lord Shiva demonstrated when he was with Daksha. He just left, right? He didn't stay around. He could have, he could have swallowed Daksha with one gulp. He swallowed an ocean of poison. He could easily swallow Daksha. But he didn't. He just left. He didn't want to get involved. So different time, place, and circumstance. We're not on the level of Narada Muni. You can't necessarily stand there and just tolerate all the time like that, Or Jesus Christ, please forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Or Haridas Thakur. How Haridas Thakur was being beaten. They were trying to kill him, whipping him to death. And he wasn't dying. They couldn't kill him. But he was quite, when he saw that the perpetrators were very tired and looking very disturbed, he asked them what their problem was. And they explained it. He said, well, you should have told me earlier. I would have left my body immediately. If my living causes you suffering, then let me die. I don't want to cause you any suffering. He was just praying for their welfare. Please, Lord Chaitanya said, I sent my Sudarshan chakra immediately to slice their heads off. But you wouldn't let Sudarshan anywhere near them. He couldn't do anything. He was stunned. We're not on that level. We have to use our common sense a little bit, We're not so tolerant. We're not so unaffected by these things. Of course, there are other injunctions too, We tolerate on our own account. This is one of the big lessons, isn't it? But we don't tolerate on someone else's account. When someone else is, like a devotee, is being blasphemed or something, we don't tolerate. In one sense, Nandi was quite justified to defend Lord Shiva. In one sense, because he's his master. Although it went a bit overboard. But, when the Lord is being blasphemed, or the spiritual master or a senior devotee, anybody really who doesn't, we don't hear it. We don't hear it. We don't tolerate that. But on our own account, we do. We may leave. We're not so advanced. Or maybe for another reason we may leave. Or we may simply tolerate. Thank you very much. A very advanced devotee will oftentimes say, thank you very much. You're very kindly purifying my heart. I'm a fallen rogue, and your criticisms or your chastisements are really so kind. They're like nectar to my ears. Please carry on. We don't usually react like that, do we? Not usually. It doesn't take us long before we start screaming or running for our lives or punch the person or whatever. Kick them, bite them, do something or another. Start saying things against them. That's the normal reaction, isn't it? You start criticizing. Someone criticizes you, you criticize them. That's a very common reaction. So Narada Muni is teaching us, obviously maybe we pick up differently from it, but he's certainly teaching us some lesson we can learn from this. Not everyone sees it in the same light. But one of the primary things, a lesson to learn from this, what is a lesson to learn? Another one.
Humility.
Pardon?
Humility.
I can't hear.
Humility, Guru Maharaj.
Humility. Yeah, she's teaching me a lesson here. I have to become humble. Humility, yeah, definitely. Humility is tolerance. Probably tolerance is the primary lesson. But a devotee, again, we're not very advanced, but a devotee who's a little bit conscious, he realizes that everything's under Krishna's control. Daksha is not an independent God. The Lord allows him to speak in this way. The devotee sees how Krishna's hand's working in everything. There's something there to learn. Whatever it may be. Or it may be just a lesson in his case. There's nothing for Narada to learn in one sense. But there's something for us to learn. So he's teaching. Oftentimes they say, Prabhupada says that the mother when her son gets married and the son's wife comes to stay with the son's mother, the mother can't directly instruct the new girl in the house. She's coming from a different family with different standards, and she doesn't know the mother, and he may not be able to take instructions from the mother-in-law like that. So the mother instructs the daughter-in-law through her own daughter. She chastises or corrects her own daughter so that the daughter-in-law can learn how things should be done. So like that, the devotees, they take roles to show us different lessons, how better to act, how to develop the qualities. They display, as one of the points here, Titikshva Karunika, this verse of Lord Kapila Dev, how a sadhu, what is a sadhu? What is a sadhu? I mean, well, that's another angle, isn't it? Yeah, you can see where you're at. Slice their heads off. Stands there with a sacrificial axe, ready to chop the goat's head off with sharp words. They cut us. That may also be another angle, but this isn't just mentioned here exactly. It's a different approach. Different approach. And of course, the situation is Daksha's not a demon. He's not a demon. He's one of the demigod. But they're sakama bhaktas. They get carried away when their position is threatened, or their quota, if you want to call it that. They're expected. I mean, he's expected to progenitate. He's supposed to populate the universe. Why is he having kids? Is because he's been told by Brahma to have a lot of kids. Then along comes Narada, and those kids are supposed to have kids. What's the point of having kids if they don't have kids? Not going to help populate the universe. Or maybe with some other creatures. But, along comes this so-called sadhu, and he just completely, hijacked my service. Literally. Isn't it? So from a material point of view, you can understand he's got a point. Isn't it? He's got a point. I mean, he didn't really curse him very much. He didn't curse him to die or suffer from cholera or something. What a really heavy curse. Prabhupada says it was a blessing, actually. It was always like that. We heard yesterday, if you were here, Lord Chaitanya was cursed. He took it as a great benediction. Thank you so much. That's just what I wanted to hear. I confirmed. Lord Chaitanya was thinking of taking sannyas, and that envious person, or whatever he was, you don't let me enter Srivas Thakur's house at night. I curse you. I'm qualified, you should know. I curse you. You will never be able to enjoy material sense gratification. Terrible curse, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you feel about getting cursed like that. Huh? Maybe you're not quite ready for that yet, I don't know. Sounds good. But I don't know if you could handle it. It'd be terrible if you didn't have actual Krishna conscious pleasure and you've been cursed not to enjoy sense gratification, wouldn't it? Pretty heavy curse. There's nothing left. I mean, it's just like hell. Lord Chaitanya, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. You were so kind to me. You blessed me. Everyone sees it like that there's a blessing. Parikshit Maharaj, there's a different incident again. But he could have easily counter-cursed Shringi's curse. He could have easily countered it, easy as pie. But he didn't bother. He saw it as Krishna's arrangement. Without that, the Bhagavatam would not have been, well, it may have been delivered in a different way, but that was the way it was meant to be delivered. So many lessons to learn from all these things. Huh? So, the devotee accepts a curse, it depends again on our level of advancement. We may not be very advanced, but an actual mature devotee accepts a curse as a blessing, not as a curse. He accepts it as Krishna's mercy. Tries to understand, So Prabhupada himself, in the purport, one of the early verses, describes how, just as Daksha cursed Narada Muni, that he couldn't stay in any one place for more than, 3 days or something? I don't know, something like that. Prabhupada said, we've also been cursed. Prabhupada said, we've also been cursed. That we can't stay in any one place for more than a few days either. Although Prabhupada did stay in some places more than that, of course, but he gave that as an example. He was generally not stay long in any place. And he said that he hopes that his disciples will grow enough, mature enough, that they will be able to take that curse on, so that he can stay in one place and translate and finish the Bhagavatam. It didn't quite happen. But that was his desire. Because an advanced devotee is not affected by a curse of an ordinary person. He may accept it for the sake of social norms, or for that person's benefit, or to teach a lesson somewhere along the line. But he's not affected by it. Oh my God, I've been cursed. I remember one time I was cursed in Radhakund. It's pretty easy to get cursed there. If you don't give enough money to the, the pandas there, they quickly curse you. I was cursed, I can never go back there again. I saw the same panda the year later. I don't think maybe, I don't know. I have no idea, but whatever it is, but it didn't seem to be a very powerful curse. You can get scared sometimes, isn't it? That's what really happens, is when you forget Krishna, you become scared and you start to get all worried and blah, blah, blah. And you try to go somewhere to release yourself of the curse. You think it's like, Krishna's not stronger than... it says here, Narada Muni is described here as Ishvara. I mean, he's controller. He's a much more powerful controller than Daksha. But he didn't bother to execute his control with power in this regards. If you do, the danger is that you lose your potency. You lose your potency when you counteract. Anyone's been on Sankirtan book distribution here? Who's been on book distribution? Hands up. Come on, I can't believe only one person. Come on, stick your hand up if you've ever been out on book distribution. Jananavas, you've been, come on, you're so lazy. You can't even stick his hand up. That's why all day, I didn't see him at all yesterday on Gopurnim, I saw him at the end of the day when Prasadam was ready. The only time I saw him all day, sleeping all day long. He didn't even bother to put his hand up.
He was cooking them.
God, that's his excuse. You were cooking? No, he wasn't cooking. Huh? I must say yesterday's feast was fantastic. Whoever cooked, huh? I don't normally eat the general fare, but I did yesterday. Wasn't it really? It was good, wasn't it? And we're coming from a different, let's say, whatever you call it, different sort of background of some kind. Cuisine. The last night was first class. It's Gokul. Was Gokul the cook? Yes. There he is. All glorious to Gokul, Prabhu. And now he's getting all proud and everything. A devotee becomes purified by being criticized if you take it properly. When you get praise, it's not so easy, is it? But it was a good feast. Everything was nice. Thank you, Prabhu. And whoever helped you with the feast, I don't know who your assistants were, but very nice indeed. Lord Chaitanya, I'm sure, was very pleased. And he looked pretty healthy this morning. I don't know, he looks pretty fit this morning. When the prasadam's first class, you don't get sick, You don't feel... I remember one time in Mayapur, we went to Rajpur. You know Rajpur with Lord Jagannath in Rajpur? And if you go for the Chapan Bhog, that lunch time, they have like 54 preparations or something, and like 30 sabji preparations. So a little group we were in, we booked the lunch, so most of it was kind of reserved for our group. And so we all ate as much as we could, because there's nothing like Jagannath Mahaprasad in Rajpur. And we had as much as we could. And then after lunch we went straight back to Mayapur, to Chandradoya Mandir, on rickshaws, so I guess it took 20 minutes or so, I don't know. It wasn't long. And then we got out the rickshaws and we walked in, And the boy said, oh, I think I can't remember if it was before or after taking sannyas, I really can't remember, whatever it was. Prabhu Maharaj, because, they knew me anyway. But they said, please come, it's Tamal Krishna Maharaj's Tirobhav today. We're having a big feast in the Samadhi, please come and have a feast. We just, ate up to here, No, please, just take a little bit at least. So we went. We had a huge feast all over again. It was like we never ate one grain of rice or something. It was amazing. I mean, it was like mystical. We just ate the whole feast again. Mystical, huh? Dear Lord Jagannath, special mystic mercy. If we somehow we see Lord Jagannath or see Krishna's hand, try to check yourself. Now, what is Krishna trying to teach me here? Now, what am I to learn from this? Is he pointing out one of my faults? Or one of my many faults? Is this purifying? Yes, it is. It's purifying us of token karma. You're getting purified. When you're praised, you're purified of good karma, if you take it properly. And when you're criticized, you're purified of bad karma. That's one other angle of looking at it. It's purifying. So you kind of, an advanced devotee thanks the person because they're releasing them of karma. Even if you don't understand the philosophical or the emotional lesson. But at least from the material perspective, it's purification. Not easy to take, is it? Not so easy. I'm sure you could, if you really studied carefully, you could, without getting into some of the additives, like the qualities of a devotee, which are so important, of course. And Lord Chaitanya's statement, which was discussed yesterday, Trinadapi Sinichena, Tarohapi Sahishna, how important that statement of Lord Chaitanya is. Practically the most important statement in the whole of the, isn't it, of the whole teaching, practically. And Lord Chaitanya's teachings, Sikshastakam, and that's the key verse. It's the key verse, it's the transformative verse. It's a transformative verse to being a kind of a, Haribol devotee, to becoming a pure devotee, practically. Yeah, you can be a Haribol devotee, that's very good, but, we kind of still maintain our conditioning, our misconceptions of who we are and who others are. So to understand what true humility is and what true tolerance is, and to be freed of this, what's the exact word mentioned here? Devoid of false prestige. Devoid of false prestige. That's pretty hard, isn't it? What's false prestige? Daksha was displaying false prestige. So what is false prestige?
Thinking that we are the doer.
Thinking you're the doer, okay. Is there anything else we can add to that? That may be enough, I don't know. Anything else? False prestige. What's prestige?
We're identifying as the body.
Is that what it means, prestige?
It's a synonym of pride.
Synonym of pride. So explain what that would mean.
It means that I'm thinking I'm something I'm not, and I'm very proud of that.
Okay. There we go. A little expansion on what you said. Huh? You're thinking you're something you're not?
Like this body, for instance. I think I am this body. And if I'm very proud of this body, if I think I have
that's even beyond most people's conception, actually. How many people think like that? They don't actually think there's anything other than that.
Yeah.
There's no knowledge of them being anything other than that. So give an example within the framework of our daily life, maybe.
Okay.
You think you're a great guy.
This is the position, a high position.
Huh?
I think they are the center of the universe.
Center of the universe, okay, same thing. You think you're a really good guy, that you're the best. Everyone else, you get that with demons. You get like that with, Jarasandha or something, I mean, he was whipped to shreds by Krishna when he attacked Mathura, but he got puffed up again thinking actually you were much better than him. It was just ill luck you had on that day and, go for it again,
In Bhagavad Gita, it says about divine and demoniac natures. And it says someone with demoniac natures thinking, so much wealth is mine, and I will give in charity.
Yeah, yeah.
I will.
They're very proud. They're very proud, huh? They're proud.
I have lots of wealth. I will give.
I had one devotee, kind of a whatever, staying with me, and his grandmother was stinking rich. You know, she was a millionaire, and she was a miser number one. And he asked her, why are you just keeping all your money like this? She said, I want everyone to see how rich I was when I die. Amazing. She's dead. But, you know, in the newspaper she bequeaths, £1 million here, £1 million to the Dog Society, £1 million to the cat organization, £1 to her grandson and things like that. Whatever it is, Incredible, false prestige. We want people to think we're something we're not. It's what you want other people to think you are as well, isn't it? You really want people to think you're something special. And you do all you can to try to, like the demons, as you just said from Gita, they give in charity, so if you, he's a good guy, but actually his motivation is very sinister.
Yes.
Very sinister. You can't always believe things on the surface. You may go along with it, you don't want to get into a whole trip about it, but you can't throw all your trust into it sometimes. They say this, what is that, the sign of a thief? What's that saying? Oh gosh, it slipped my mind. Prabhupada uses that saying.
Too much devotion is a sign of a thief.
Yeah, it's over. Prabhu, you're such a great devotee. You're so wonderful. I'm so full. Please, can I take your dust to your feet? Can I serve you?
Meanwhile, he's taking the dust from your pocket.
Yeah. Getting some favor. You want to get some favor. You're flattering someone to get some favor is another twist, isn't it? You don't care a damn for them, to be honest. You're just trying to get something from them. Another angle is not quite the same thing, but it's similar. You've got this false behavior. It's the greatest barrier in spiritual life, this false prestige. The greatest barrier. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said this is the greatest barrier, this duplicity, this falsity. But the room for prestige is there. What's prestige in another way? What would be good prestige?
Prabhupada said we should be proud of being Paka Vaishnavas, good Vaishnavas.
Again, you've got to be very careful there, especially if you're not. And I don't think any of us would say we are. So I don't know what we've got to be proud of in one sense. You can be proud that somehow or another, despite the fact that we're so fallen, that we've been given this chance to become a servant of a servant. Proud of being a servant of a pure devotee. Proud of that. Yeah.
You could be proud that you woke up and went for Mangalarti. It's good. It's good. Mode of goodness.
As long as it doesn't counteract others, and you're proud of it, and you get on everyone else's case because they never came. It's good that you chant 64 rounds a day, as long as you don't advertise it. As long as you don't go around, looking at people as if they're fallen because they never chanted 64 rounds. There was a wave in ISKCON. I don't know if you were around then, Sridham, or any of you older devotees here. Maybe some of you were. And, I won't mention the names involved, but there was a wave in ISKCON of 64 rounds on every Ekadashi, and staying up all night long, and chanting all night. Not sleeping. You're fasting from water even, nirjal, every Ekadashi. And I think that after this, some of you are going to remember this and start thinking, Maharaj just said we should do it. That sometimes happens. You take a little statement, but you don't take it in context. We read something like that yesterday, didn't we? Were you with me? Some real far-out statement. I can't remember what it said. It said, one should engage in sense gratification, I think it said. If you take it out of context, that wasn't the whole sentence, there's a whole many items. It was something like that, So this was going on, and I was visiting the places where this was going on at that time. This was like 30 years ago, in the 90s. And I visited these places, some of them, and I was a little surprised. Because I never, no problem, chant 64 rounds every day if you have the chance. Fantastic. Okay, fasting, nothing wrong with that. Staying up all night, I'm not so sure. It was like instituted. You can't institute these things. Instituted. Everyone had to do it. And if you didn't do it, you were considered fallen. But the worst thing of all was, that's one thing, that's maybe the worst thing, but the other noticed thing was, I was there for the morning program. Straight after Mangal Arati, everyone disappeared. They all went and took some cold sweet milk, passed through, and went to sleep. And that was it till after midday. Nobody came for the morning program. Well, what's the use of this? This is counterproductive. Counterproductive. It doesn't, And the next day, there was a question went round. The leaders said, "So how many rounds did you chant on a Kadashi? How many rounds did you chant? Did you finish 64? Well, probably not. I didn't quite make it. I was on 38. Well done. Try better next time." It was like that, That isn't what is. That's completely opposite to what the purpose is. Missing the whole point. It's not a mechanical thing.
Yes.
But this tendency is there. So you have to be a little bit careful you don't get proud in a sense that it becomes a negativity towards others. I know from personal experience that you kind of feel proud and almost you plan that others don't come. You don't wake them up, so you feel even more proud you're the only one there, You're one up on them, The false ego is like, never ending, isn't it? Anyway, if we go on and on, we've got to finish there. Nice subject matter. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. I'm sure there's a good chance there's some questions, but I don't know how much time we've got. It's 9:15 and we've got a lot to do today. You have any questions? Young man? Where is? At least there's one intelligent person in the room. You okay? You okay? So what are you going to do now? Go out and criticize everybody. For their benefit, by the way. They become purified. I'm purifying you, Prabhu. I just heard it in the class. You should tolerate. I'm your best friend. I'm going to criticize you so you learn tolerance and you become purified. And you just stand there and listen. As long as I'm, continue to criticize you, just don't move. Stay there. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for me. Is that what you learned? Maybe. What do you think, Sundar? You seem to have a lot to say.
Maharaj, I had another question.
That's good.
Yesterday we went for Harinam to a local market.
In Alaminos? Just up the road?
Yeah, just up the road.
10 minutes away.
There's a school there.
Huh?
There's
School. There's a school, there's a church, there's a school, there's a little market.
Yeah, there's a whole market. So we went in there, but we started singing Hare Krishna, but the people, when we go to different places, people will clap along. These people were looking at us like we were dangerous or something. Like they'd been told something about Hare Krishnas and they were reserved.
Reserved?
Yeah. And then we went and some people were very favourable, but the general was like...
A bit blank, huh?
Yeah, do you have any insights into the specific nature of Filipino people in general, and then what's the way to connect with them?
Well, that's a good, from the practical interaction, that's a good question, but maybe we should open that up to the devotees.
Really good to know. know.
Yeah, what do you think? Some of the senior devotees here, you've had a lot of experience through the generation, last 30, 40 years. What do you think?
Generally, they're reserved, Maharaj.
They're generally reserved.
Yes.
They're generally reserved. There's a Catholicism. There's a strong
Tell
Catholicism.
them watch out for these Hare Krishnas. Do they preach that? No. Not like this, no?
Because they are always scared if you don't understand something.
Okay.
So you have to
Explain. Yeah, if we found that yesterday. We were saying, can you say Hare Krishna? And they're like, what is it? Usually in other countries, people would just go along.
Yeah.
But here, then I would stop and say, well,
Yeah.
it actually means
Yeah.
God bless you in ancient language. And then we explain it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
then we'll do it.
They become a little more relaxed. Huh? Yeah, they're a little bit reserved like that, a little bit shy, a little bit conservative, a little bit Catholicism.
They're not very gullible. They're like, they don't blindly follow, it seems. Seems like they need explanation.
Well, yeah, is it right to say they're kind of mostly in a kind of a culture which has, like, you know, a certain box of some kind?
Yeah. It was very interesting.
They don't easily.
Countries,
Yeah, that's their protection. I mean, the history of this country also has, you know, 350 years of Spanish rule.
Colonization.
Yeah, Catholic Spanish rule. So there's a tendency to be a little bit wary of outside the box, you know, tendency. But when you go to places like, well, like in Luneta Park, Rizal Park the other day, I mean, of course, there's a lot of tourists there, but there's other classes of people who are very relaxed and open, especially the young kids. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of you were there last week in Rizal Park.
We went to one cafe and then the kids were like a little bit relaxed. We sat down, we gave them a short talk, and then we asked them to chant, and they chanted, took photos.
The very young kids are the most. When we talk of young kids, we're not talking of young kids with their parents. We're not talking of the educated ones. I don't know how they educate devoted people here in this country. Sometimes they educate in a way which you're meant to think and act in a certain way. France is the same. You know, there are certain countries, they don't even know it, but the education system is arranged to kind of help you think in a certain way or react in a certain way to. Japanese people are the same. They're taught to not react, you know, or whatever it is, you know. And in France, they're taught to react. Like if you go up to someone, this is written in their own manual for tourists, by the way. The French Tourist Association explain this. They say, don't take it wrong, but as soon as you say something, the French person will naturally say no. Excuse me, no. You haven't even said what you want. Could you help? No. They don't even listen to what you want, you know. His automatic no comes out. Many people are trained like that. Not so much the new generation, but the old generation. You know, so sometimes this default is there already. You don't react to anything new. You know, you just don't open up to it, you know. You've got all you need, you know. Be careful. Don't, you know, outside, something from outside, you know. I mean, children, rightly so, in many ways, you could say, also are trained like that, you know, not to receive anything from someone you don't know, you know. You know, sometimes people have an ill intent. They give something to a child, you know, with the hope of, you know, something unbecoming.
Yes.
You know, so they're trained. No, don't accept anything from a stranger. A little bit like that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.